Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Srimati Divine Grace of Vaichanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai, Shri Gaur Nitai Bhagavan ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Guru Premanande. All glories to the Assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 4, chapter 8. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home, text number 73 to 77. I think 73 is on the board. Yeah. So we'll read 73 together and then I'll go through all the verses until 77. Okay. Dvitiyam cha tatamasam Dvitiyam cha tatamasam Saste shashter bhakodine Shaste shashter bhakodine Tinaparnadi bishirnai Trinaparnadi bishirnai Kritanor bhyachayan vibhum Kirtano bhyarchayan vibhum Dvitiyam cha tatamasam Shaste shaster bhakodine Trinaparnadi bishirnai Kritannor bhyarchayan vibhum Dvitiyam cha tatamasam Shaste shaster bhakodine Trinaparnadi bishirnai Kitano bhyarchayan vibhum. Napanadi Bishirnai No Byarchayan Vibhum. One more? Anyone? Dvityam cha tatamasam Shaste Shaster Bikodine Nirvanadi Bishirnai Tano Vyarchayan Vibhum. Does anyone want to try? You want to try reciting the Sanskrit? Yes? No? Okay, no problem. We'll read word for word. Dvitiyam, the next month. Cha, also. Tata, as mentioned above. Masam, month. Shaste Shaste, every sixth day. Arbakaha, the innocent boy. Dine, on days. Trinaparna Adibihi, by grasses and leaves. Sirnai, which were dry. Krita Annaha, made for his food. Abhyarchayan, and thus continued his method of worship. Vibhum, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: in the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. Okay, we'll go to text 77 because that is where the purport is. So text 74, please hear. Tritiyam chanayam masam navame hani abhaksha uttama shlokam upadhavat samadhinam. Translation: in the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. So who are we talking about here? Dhruva Maharaj. He's doing tapasya in the forest after getting instructions from Narada Muni. Text 75. Chaturtam api vaimasam dvadase hani vayubhaksho jito swaso dhyayan devam adharayat. Translation: in the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Panchame masyanu prapte jitasvaso nipatmaja dhyayan brahma padhaikena tashtostanurivachala. By the 5th month, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just as a column stands without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. Text 77. Sarvato mana akrishya hridi bhutendriyasayam dhyayan bhagavato rupam nadrakshit kinchana param. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: you can repeat after me. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind without diversion to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: the yogic principles of meditation are clearly explained here. One has to fix one's mind upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without diversion to any other objective. It is not that one can meditate or concentrate on an impersonal objective. To try to do so is simply a waste of time, for it is unnecessarily troublesome, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukum Karoti Vachalam Pongum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Tinatarinam Rupa Goswami's yes. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bhandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Mahapurana, the Amala Purana, the spotless Purana. Yesterday was Guru Purnima, the appearance day of Vyasadeva himself. So the Vedas, they are the body of knowledge in which Lord Krishna instructed Brahma. So if you see that picture there, next to Srila Prabhupada, you'll see Lord Brahma sitting on the lotus, and simply by hearing the flute, the sound of the flute of Krishna, Krishna initiated Lord Brahma into the Gayatri mantra. And simply by meditating on this Gayatri mantra, Lord Brahma was able to give the whole Vedas. In fact, it's mentioned the Vedas appear in every millennia by the breathing of the Lord. Simply by Mahavishnu's breathing, the Vedas are emanated. So, the existence of the Vedas are eternal, but how each Brahma learns, of course, at the beginning of his life, is through the flute. At least those who are fortunate, through the flute, the sound of the flute of the Lord. And our Lord Brahma, being the Acharya in our Sampradaya, the Brahma Gauriya Madhva Sampradaya, he is given the Vedas. And those Vedas were available to every living entity in the beginning of creation, Satya Yuga specifically. But then, due to the decline in people's knowledge, decline in people's virtue, decline in people's memory, when it came to the age of Kali, it was very difficult for living entities to be able to understand the Vedas, because the lifespan was short, and we are known as Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Upadritaha, that we are very unfortunate, lazy and slow in this age of Kali. It's not that in other ages there weren't people like this. There were, but they were a minority. In this age we are the majority. So in this day and age, Krishna himself incarnated as Srila Vyasadeva, and he split the Vedas into 4 sections. Does anyone know what the 4 Vedas are? Any of our visitors, you know the 4 Vedas. I'll give you one. Rig Veda. Yajur. Anyone else? Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. Good. And then he gave the Upanishads. And then from the Vedas, he gave the Vedanta. Because the Veda was so huge, he thought people will not be able to find the essence and they'll never get to the end of it. So then I'll give the end. Anta means the end, the conclusion. So he gave the Vedanta. Unfortunately, even the Vedanta was too much, too vast. So therefore he gave the Vedanta Sutra. Sutra means in concise format, in like code format. If a sage is able to memorize the Vedanta Sutra and having been trained in the Veda and Vedanta, simply by understanding or hearing that Vedanta Sutra, they'll be able to decode it and be able to explain the whole Vedas in whatever format is required by the audience. So even that Vedanta Sutra was very difficult. Can you imagine someone who just suddenly decides to understand Vedas and they read the Vedanta Sutra? It's very difficult for them to understand the full meaning, right? If you summarize some subject matter into a sentence, how much will you be able to understand of the original subject matter? Not much. The basic principles, right? So in that sense, Vyasadeva then decided that I will write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra myself, so that people in this age of Kali, even if they don't read the Vedas, even if they don't read the Vedanta Sutra, simply by reading this natural commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam, they'll be able to benefit and they'll be able to go home back to Godhead. And that is the essence of the Vedas, that we do not belong in this material world. We are here simply due to our illusion, thinking that we are this body, we are this mind. I am such and such. I am Indian, I am Nepali, I am American, I am Australian. Right? And our occupations, we unfortunately identify with our occupations. Like a mother at home will be a wife, a mother, a friend, a daughter, a sister, right? At work, a colleague. They could be, a doctor, they could be a surgeon, they can be an accountant, so on and so forth. We have so many identifications, and that is what's holding us back. Because actually, as the Vedanta Sutra and Srimad Bhagavatam specifically mention, that we are eternally servants of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, the first sutra of the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasa. Atato, that one word, you can write volumes and volumes of books. And that's what I was saying before. Sutra means code format. One word, you can explain so many things. This atata means after so many lifetimes. Atata means thereafter. So you can explain so many with this one word. But generally this sutra means that after so many births, now you've come to the point of human form of life. Now it begins Atato Brahma Jignasa. Now you must inquire into the absolute truth. What is the purpose of life? Why do I exist here? Where am I supposed to go? So on and so forth. And Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly explains this. In this day and age, Vyasadeva has given us Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Puranas, because we are very slow. If I were to give you, or if Vyasadeva was supposed to give you a philosophical treatise, just philosophy, we'd fall asleep. We wouldn't remember what we read the last paragraph. But Srila Vyasadeva has given us, in the format of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, the Itihasas, the ability to understand through stories or through pastimes, the ability to understand the essence of the Vedas through the history of others. And Srimad Bhagavatam is completely about the pure devotees of the Lord. So much so that his spiritual master told him, Narada Muni told Vyasadeva to write Srimad Bhagavatam, because Vyasadeva wrote everything. He wrote all the Puranas, he wrote all the Itihasa, he wrote all the Upanishads, split the Vedas into 4 sections. But he's not feeling satisfied. Something deep within the core of the heart made him feel dissatisfied, uncomfortable, with anxiety. And that's when Narada Muni appears and tells him, you have not exclusively glorified Sri Krishna and the devotional process. And that's what Srimad Bhagavatam is. So now we are reading about Dhruva Maharaj. And it's wonderful to hear about Dhruva Maharaj, because we hear that Dhruva Maharaj, he desired something which was material. And what was that? a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather. His father was King Uttanapad. Uttanapad's father was Swayambhuv Manu, the first Manu in this cycle of Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga and Kali Yuga. Then you have Lord Brahma, the father of Manu. He wanted the kingdom greater than Brahma. And Brahma is the first living creature in this material world. So you can understand what type of opulence he wanted. Out of great frustration, he wanted to show his stepmother that just see, if you're not allowing me to sit on the father's throne, I'll get a throne greater than my father. And then you'll have to see who can sit where. So it is by the mercy of Narad Muni that Dhruva Maharaj was guided onto the right path of Krishna consciousness. Narad Muni was so expert that he was able to mold Dhruva Maharaj's life in such a way that he was able to direct his energy towards becoming Krishna conscious. So you can understand that coming to Krishna consciousness with some ulterior motive or material desire, that is fine in the beginning stages. It is natural. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that there are 4 types of pious persons that come to me. Does anyone know these 4 types of pious people? The inquisitive, yeah, okay. Anyone else? The distressed, those who are desirous of wealth. Yes, those who are seeking transcendental knowledge. So we see these 4 personalities or categories Krishna gives. In fact, Krishna is so grateful for these people to come to Krishna consciousness that he calls them as Udhara, very broad-minded, very liberal, right? This word is used like in the example of when one is generous. Krishna is extremely grateful for anyone that comes to him. So in this circumstance, Rupa Goswami specifically gives us examples of devotees that come to Krishna consciousness through these 4 categories. And of course, majority of us come through the category of distress. Something in material world has burnt us to a crisp, right? We've been, as you mentioned, right, a cosmic slap. We've had a nice, good beating by material nature. And out of that distress, we come to Krishna consciousness. So that's why we're in the temple, right? We want some peace, we want some satisfaction, we want some happiness. So we come to the temple thinking that, okay, God is here, there's some religion here, dharma is being performed, so we come to Krishna consciousness. At least those who come from that sort of area of background of religiosity. And those who don't come from that background come to Krishna consciousness because it's a nice, quiet, peaceful atmosphere. These people look happy, their food tastes good, their dancing and chanting is very nice. So there's some way of appreciating Krishna consciousness and dharma and practice of dharma. So then, by that, those who are distressed to come to Krishna consciousness, they are, or that category is compared to that of Gajendra, the elephant king Gajendra. That Gajendra, he prayed to Lord Vishnu because he was in the grasp of a crocodile. He was about to die. So in that distressful situation, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he was delivered. Okay, so that's the example of distressed category. What was the other category? Those who are desiring wealth. Who's the example for that one? Can you take a guess? Dhruva Maharaj, yes. So Dhruva Maharaj desired a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather. That's pretty much, he wanted something the best of the best. And Narad Muni engaged him in Krishna's service to be able to get it. And I'll come to that later. What about those who are inquisitive? See, the difference between those who are wanting of knowledge and those who are inquisitive is that inquisitive means passing. In passing, somewhat curiosity is there. Some inquisitiveness is there. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. But it's not more permanent. It is not an active sense like for a want of knowledge. Okay, it's just simply like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what is this all about? That sort of thing. Whereas those who are inquisitive say, okay, so what is it about? How can I apply it in my life? And how can I attain the ultimate goal in life? So it's a step further. So those who are inquisitive, can anyone guess? Those who know? Who are given, yes, who's given as an example? the sages of Naimisharanya, specifically because it's mentioned that they were already undergoing a performance of sacrifice in Kali Yuga for many thousands of years to be able to perform. The purpose of the yagya was to be able to alleviate the distress of Kali Yuga, alleviate the incoming sinful nature of Kali Yuga. And so therefore they inquisitively asked from Sutta Goswami about Srimad Bhagavatam. What's the last one? Want of knowledge. Who's the example for that? Yeah. Yes, the four Kumaras. The four Kumaras, and it ties nicely with this. The four Kumaras were known as Brahmavadis, or loosely impersonalists. They worship the Supreme Brahman. But then, by the mercy of the Lord, they somehow or other got an opportunity to come to the door of Vaikuntha. And coming to the door of Vaikuntha, smelling the tulasi that was at the lotus feet of the Lord, they immediately became bhakti yogis. So you can see how they progressed really fast. So each one, you can see how they progressed towards pure devotional service, worship of Krishna, the service of Krishna. So you can see here in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj is leaving home, and in this particular couple of slokas that we've recited, that we are hearing about his austerities. And as Sripalad Prabhu mentioned, and Prabhupada's mentioning in the purport, that these austerities were simply meant to help him and aid him, assist him in performing devotional service. And that we have been given our regulative principles to follow, and the chanting of the holy name. What we can take from Dhruva Maharaj in these verses is that how he progressively let go of the main things that are bounding us to this material world. We have these four things: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, right? Birth, death, disease, and old age. They are the four problems of life that material nature, material science cannot solve. But there are another four things that Prabhupada specifically mentions that we need to overcome to slowly get towards transcendence. And that's Ahara Nidra Bhayamaitunam Cha. Samanametad Pasubi Naranam. Prabhupada says, he's quoting Mahabharata, Yudhishthira Maharaj says this actually, that this eating, sleeping, mating and defending, if a human being performs these activities as the goal in life, there is no difference between that human being and an animal. There is no difference between, you can consider that human being, as Prabhupada says, as a polished animal. Right? It looks like they're performing wonderful activities, but it's simply just animalistic. So, by being able to perform devotional service, gradually we should be able to reduce these four things to the bare minimum. And now there's this confusion that at one stage we're talking about we must perform activities. You'll read in Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada says we must, in the purport yesterday, Prabhupada saying we should accept only that which is necessary to keep the body and soul together. Have you read in different sections of Prabhupada's books where Prabhupada says it's okay to accept sense gratification? Have you read it or heard Prabhupada say that anywhere? Yes, so there's a condition there. And that's in as much as to keep the body and soul together. In different places you'll see, actually, I've personally read Prabhupada saying that this sense gratification is required, but then Prabhupada qualifies it, in so much as to keep the body and soul together. Because and of course, during one stage of devotional service, according to one stage of devotional service, in 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Uddhava Gita section, Krishna specifically mentions an example of a person riding a horse, and he compares this to the yogi controlling the mind. When the yogi controls the mind, is like a person holding the horse, and when one holds the reins of the horse is considered to be the mind, and the horse is a wild horse, and it's going at a great speed. You should not immediately pull on the reins of the horse, lest you will fall over on the horse. The horse will stop abruptly and fall over. Rather, one should be very expert in controlling or taming the horse, that when necessary you should let go of the reins, and when necessary you should pull the reins of the horse. And so in that section it's mentioned, Krishna explains that a yogi knows exactly when to satisfy the senses and when not to satisfy the senses. And when we talk about satisfying the senses, it means when the stomach is hungry, one feeds the stomach. One provides food stuff to keep the stomach and the body together, right? And in that way, one is able to slowly feed the mind and the senses and control the mind and senses in this way. But in our Krishna consciousness philosophy, Krishna consciousness practice, Mahaprabhu's made it very easy. As you can see here, in previous ages, there was time. They had the lifespan to be able to perform these activities. Although Dhruva Maharaj did it within 6 months, generally such practice of yoga takes many thousands of lifetimes. Then you have also the determination, the virtue, the motivation. They had the bodily structure, they had the facility. Everything there was geared or enabled them to be able to perform such activities. But this day and age, seeing our pitiable condition, Mahaprabhu's given us a very simple process. That if we simply chant this holy name, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nameva Kevalam, Kalau Nashteva, Nashteva, Nashteva Gatiranyatha. That if we simply take to the chanting of the holy name, that naturally we will attain that purification of heart. That Dhruva Maharaj and other yogis, so-called other yogis in the different practices, they achieve or attain by many years of austerities and practice. So you can see here that Dhruva Maharaj is gradually controlling the senses. He's gradually bringing them under control. He is subduing the senses. It's mentioned the senses are like snakes. Durden Tindriya Kala Sarpa Patili Dhamstrayate Prokata Dhamstrayate. Prabhupada quotes Prabodhananda Saraswati. For a devotee, right, the senses are like snakes, venomous snakes. But for a devotee, they're like toothless, venomous snakes. In other words, they have no effect. The snake's fangs have been removed for a devotee. They have no fear from such venomous snakes called the senses. So for a devotee, naturally they are able to control their senses in practicing Krishna consciousness. I'll come to that a bit more, because this is a very important point. In yoga, they do it by their own strength. There's a lot of effort on part to control the senses. And if they're actually performing yoga properly, they would be doing it under the instruction of a guide, a spiritual master. But generally the practice of yoga is compared to that of a monkey holding his or her mother. A baby monkey holding their mother. When the baby monkey holds the mother, when the mother jumps from branch to branch, it is simply wholly and solely dependent on the child to hold on to its mother. The mothers will jump from branch to branch, and the baby monkey has to hold on, or else it perishes. Whereas the devotee is completely under the protection of the Supreme Lord. That no matter what happens, stumbling, tripping, falling, fumbling, whatever may happen, the kitten is in the mouth of the mother. The kitten doesn't, in fact, if you have a look, the kitten simply dangles in the mouth of the mother. And the mother takes it from place to place. It's completely dependent and protected by the mother. So in Krishna consciousness, simply we are at the mercy of the devotees. We're at the mercy of the instructions of the spiritual master. We're at the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we're at the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So coming back to the yogis, you can see here that we can, as I was mentioning, Dhruva Maharaj is gradually increasing his tapasya, increasing his austerities, increasing his devotion or his practice of Krishna consciousness, and reducing the necessities of the body. And it's specifically mentioned here, you'll see, second month he ate only 6 days and he took grass and leaves, and then he continued his worship. The specific word is given here is Abhyarchayan. Dhruva Maharaj, he made the murti of the Lord and he worshipped the Lord alongside his mystic yoga process. So keep that in mind. Then in the third month, and of course, he chanted the holy name. under the instruction of his spiritual master. In the 3rd month, he drank water only 9 days, and thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. So he wasn't worshipping Brahman. He was directly worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Uttama Shloka. Okay. The 4th month, he became a complete master of the breathing exercise. It's mentioned by practicing pranayam, you're able to retain the life airs within the body, that you do no longer need to breathe, and you only breathe when, again, necessary. So thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You see, simultaneously, along with the physical aspect, there is an internal aspect being emphasized here. That yes, Dhruva Maharaj did this every 6 days. Yes, he did it every 9 days. Yes, every 12 days. He did that physically. But what was going on internally? The worship and meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead was going on internally. What was happening was that his external activities were reducing and his spiritual activities were gradually increasing. So if you think about it this way, when we fast on fasting days, what is the purpose of that? It's to increase the time in engaging in Krishna's service, in hearing about Krishna. That's the purpose of our fasting, right? How much time we waste in eating that can be used in worshipping Krishna. Of course, when we eat, as Vaishnavas, we honor prasad. It's a service to Krishna. But it's an opportunity to chant the holy names more. It's an opportunity to read about Krishna more. An opportunity to engage in more service. Now, think about this. That's eating. What about breathing? How much time do we spend breathing? It's involuntary at this point in time, but there is some energy put into breathing. Dhruva Maharaj was reducing that so that he engaged that in Krishna's service. Understand his level of renunciation. He was reducing his breathing so that even that fraction of a moment that's used in breathing was engaged in remembering Krishna. And we see that in the example of Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was the epitome or the example of following the rules and regulations of renunciation. It's mentioned he is the example that Mahaprabhu wanted to teach the world about performing renunciation. It's mentioned by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was so fixed in his renunciation, it was like lines in a stone. Lines in stone never change. They're never affected. They can never be twisted, they can never be cut, nothing. So in that way, Raghunath Das Goswami's performance of devotional service, his renunciation, his bhakti renunciation, his firm, fixed devotional service to the Lord, renouncing material necessities, was so strong that he was never deviated from it. And that's what we'll come to now. So then, as we continue 76, 5th month, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of the king. Remember, it's very interesting, is mentioned as Nipra Atmaja, the son of the king. There's no commentary, nothing mentioned, but when one refers to son of the king, they're a prince, they're full of enjoyment, opulence. What's austerity got to do with a prince, right? But that prince had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on one leg. Just as a column stands without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind without diversion to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just see, now he's completely controlled his senses. It's mentioned here he had trained trance in a previous verse. He had already attained samadhi, at least dhyana, now samadhi, complete trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What is the difference between dharana, because Ashtanga Yoga, there are 8 processes, 7th and 8th step is dhyana and samadhi. Dhyana and samadhi, the difference is the time or the length of period one is able to be absorbed in that state of consciousness. Samadhi means complete absorption. Dhyana means a little less. Samadhi, full. So here we can see that Dhruva Maharaj has attained samadhi, that ultimate goal of that 8-step process. But see here, Prabhupada's saying in the purport here, that it's nothing to do with an impersonal objective. Take it out of your mind that he was worshipping on anything other than Bhagavata Rupa. Dhyayan Bhagavato Rupam. Na drakshit kinchana param. That he, without diversion to anything else, fixed his mind firmly on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can understand everything was simply used to aid him in his practice of devotional service, so they became more absorbed in Krishna, more attached to Krishna. And to be able to do this requires expert guidance from the spiritual master. We cannot see what happens, what activity will perform now and what the result will be. But the spiritual master knows. So for some of us, the spiritual master will give us instructions in one way, in practice in one way. And for others, they may give instructions and practice in another way. But the essence is there. It will, to engage them or to keep us in Krishna consciousness. Now, when one comes to samadhi, one controls the senses, one comes to a point when one is complete control and he's liberated. The point of liberation is when one no longer identifies with the body and identifies with the spirit soul. And the next step after that is understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But here, get this. That point of liberation is easily achieved simply by chanting Hare Krishna. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. This is the beginning of the Shikshashtaka. That state of liberation is immediately achieved simply by chanting Hare Krishna. Why? Because we are cleansing the mirror of the heart so that we can see that we are simply a servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the master of the gopis. And naturally, when you come to that platform of liberation, what more is needed? Simply to engage in Krishna service. That's it. Whereas all other yoga processes end there. That's it. Liberation, that's it. Finished. Therefore, Prabhupada says here, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, to simply meditate on or concentrate on the impersonal objective, and to do so is simply a waste of time, for it is unnecessarily troublesome. The verse Prabhupada is referring to is 12:15, that klesho adhikarastesham avyakta sakta chetsam, that those who worship on the impersonal form of the Lord, it is simply troublesome worshipping the Lord. They take so much endeavor, it's so difficult, full of austerity, it's troublesome, and in the end it's a waste of time. It's fruitless. Why? Prabhupada gives two examples. One, he says that when one wants to worship the Supreme Lord in his impersonal form, as formless Brahman, it is very difficult for the embodied soul to do so, because we're simply attached to the form of things. That's all we have understanding of, and rightly so. So therefore we must take so much endeavor, so much austerity to be able to, rework the mind, rework the understanding, to be able to understand some impersonal feature, which is impossible anyway. And for such persons who become, perfected in that, understanding of the impersonal Brahman, understanding that Krishna exists everywhere, but not understanding that he exists also in Rupam, Sarupam. Such persons, Prabhupada says, when they get to their perfection, they realize it is not really perfection. Then they realize that they need to understand and worship Krishna. And when such fortunate people who are humble and get to that point, for them, their whole lifetimes of cultivation of impersonalism becomes troublesome, because it becomes very difficult to give it up. They'll constantly doubt the practice of Krishna consciousness, because they'll constantly doubt, is Krishna really there? Is he a form? Is this really Krishna? Right? Is this not just marble like that? They'll constantly doubt it. And therefore we are also infected with that impersonalist tendency. That when we come to see the Lord, we don't realize that the Lord is there directly, due to our lack of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, by practicing Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the spiritual master, naturally we'll be able to relate to Krishna. And not these yogis, Dhruva Maharaj is not such a yogi, but what mystic yogis try to attain within their heart after many, 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 many millions of years of meditating on the Lord in their heart, they come to a point of being able to see the Supreme Soul within their heart. They can see Him face to face. But a Bhakti Yogi, us, by the mercy of Prabhupada, simply come and see Radha Gopinath. Have you performed tapasya? Have you performed austerities for thousands and millions of years? No, right? At best, we may have slept for 5 minutes less this morning. That's it. Right? Yeah, and shower was a couple of minutes faster than usual, whatever, you know. You haven't taken prasad, great austerity. But you're able to come and see Shri Radha Gopinath face to face. So what does that mean? You've already surpassed those yogis. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara, you've already surpassed that. And if now you simply look and follow the footsteps of the pure devotees, naturally you'll find yourself back home, back to Godhead, because that's where they're going. Another thing here is that principles of yoga, Prabhupada mentions here. I can quickly briefly touch on that. And what is the principle of yogic meditation? What's the principle of yoga? What's the principle of meditation? One has to fix one's mind upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without diversion to any other objective. So that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to worship Krishna, Shri Radha Gopinath, without any diversion to anything else. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions specifically that if we really want to attain that, the best form is to worship the spiritual master and follow his instructions. Vavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana, without diversion, one-minded, single-track worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead happens by carrying out the orders of the spiritual master. How it happens, when it happens, all of the things is not our concern. Our concern is simply by practicing this Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the spiritual master, we will get there. In fact, we are there. We just have to realize it. Because this is Vaikuntha. Radha Gopinath is here. Prabhupada's engaging us in Radha Gopinath's service. When we go back to Godhead, Prabhupada's going to continue engaging us in Shri Radha Gopinath's service. So, Dhruva Maharaj, what we can learn from Dhruva Maharaj in these couple of verses is that we can learn that gradually we must come to the point. And gradually is a term that's individual for each person. Gradually can be many lifetimes for one person. Gradually can be a couple of minutes for another person. That gradually and that time period is wholly and solely dependent on our determination, our desire to get out of this material world. The more we desire to get out of the material world, the quicker we'll get out, right? If we're in a building that's on fire, right? There's a nice story. I'll finish with this one point. There's a nice story given by it's in the Akbar Birbal, that one day this king Akbar, he was talking to his minister Birbal, and he was saying to him that in our kingdom, I'm thinking that we should arrange a situation for those who are not able to take care of themselves. We should give them the facility, right? We should give them all facility. And so the king arranged that he told all people in the kingdom who are unable to work, who are finding it difficult to work, they should come to the kingdom and we'll provide everything that's required. And what happened? Everyone came. Everyone came to the kingdom, to the king. And so the king asked Birbal, so what should I do? Actually there are people who need, they're unable, they're lazy, they're not able to do, so what should we do? So Birbal said, actually what you should do, you will see the house is there, and you should bring them to that house and put her on fire. And then you'll see who's actually lazy. And so what happened was that all the people who were sane, they immediately jumped out, except for 2 people, and they were laying on the bed in the house, right? And so the house is on fire. Things are burning down. And one man told the other man, oh, it's getting a bit too hot here. And the other one said, it's okay, just turn over, it'll be cooler on the other side. And so then Birbal said, here, they're the 2 people who are unable to work, completely they're dependent on you, they need your help. So you can understand that when the desire is there, you will leave. you will leave, unless you're like these two personalities, completely dull-headed. But there's a fire, you will leave. The point I'm trying to make here is when there's a desire, you will leave. When the desire is to leave the material world, you will leave. Or else it will look like you're trying to leave, right? Another story I remember when I came to Krishna consciousness was that once the a disciple came to his spiritual master and told him that, you're talking about the material world and getting liberated and becoming, coming out of the bondage of material existence. But like, it's so hard. Maya is just holding on to me. I'm not able to let go, she's not letting me go. I can't leave material existence. It's just so hard like that. He said, okay, you come back the next day, we'll discuss this. I'm busy. So the next day next morning the disciple comes and he sees his spiritual master hugging the tree. And he's saying, let go, please, let go of me, let go, let go. And then the disciple understood, actually it's not that Maya was holding on to me. I'm holding on to Maya. I am not letting go. So how much are we holding on to Maya? And how much are we actually letting go? Another way of saying this is Krishna sees what we're holding back. Right? Prabhupada says his father tells him, Krishna has so many hands, tens and tens of hands. If he wants to take something away, how can you stop him? And he wants to give you something, how much can you hold? So Krishna's seeing how much you're holding back. The more and more we give to Krishna, the more and more he'll reciprocate with us. And naturally, it will snowball effect. We will reciprocate with him, he will reciprocate with us, and we'll go on and on and on for eternity. And the example of this are the gopis. The gopis have perfected this principle of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. Always fixing the mind on the form of the Lord. I'm reading Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I remember the first time I read it, I had no idea what I was reading. And second time reading, I have no idea what I'm reading. But there, one thing I can understand is that when Mahaprabhu is talking in his ecstasy, in his madness, if you have a look, the gopis just simply glorify Krishna. That the gopis are simply mad after Krishna. That all they remember are things about Krishna. So if you want to learn about how to take darshan more of Radha Gopinath, you should read about how the gopis take darshan of Krishna, their descriptions of Krishna. Because even the minutest things, as Krishna wearing his earring and it touches his cheek, they're able to remember that and remember the beauty of Krishna and go into ecstasy. Complete transcendental bliss, samadhi. Just simply by remembering the curls of the tresses of Krishna's hairs framing his face, they're able to go into ecstasy, remember Krishna. There's one verse that Srimati Radharani says that Mahaprabhu relishes, and it's mentioned that I was reading, it's just one verse, one couple of lines, maybe 4 words, 5 words. And just by reading this, Mahaprabhu went to great ecstasy, and you see pages and pages and pages of Mahaprabhu relishing and tasting that ecstasy. That's how deep their love of Krishna was. That it just one small remembrance or one impetus, one small fraction of that, they're able to just simply merge into the ocean of Krishna consciousness, merge into love of Krishna. They're able to relish Krishna consciousness, relish Krishna's association. So they're the highest platform, and we are following in the footsteps of our previous acharyas, going towards that goal, right? So you can understand here that how much His Holiness Karunamai Vanamali Maharaj was mentioning. Srimati Radharani reads Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reads Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes because of the determination, the steadfastness Dhruva Maharaj had in performing Krishna consciousness. So we can learn from that. So I'll just quickly recap. The main 2 points I was trying to focus on today was that Dhruva Maharaj was gradually letting go. Gradually he was letting go of material existence. And he was increasing his Krishna consciousness. How do we apply it in our lives? The more and more we take up the mission, the service, the instructions of the spiritual master, we will see that we gradually let go of what we think is so necessary for our maintenance of our body. And gradually we'll see, to be able to do this service, I need to keep the body fit in this way. And you'll only do that so you can perform your service. And now the second point is that the principle of meditation, of yoga, is simply to fix one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's all. That's all we need to do. And that's easily achieved by simply practicing the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Chintamani Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purna Shuddha Nitya Mukto, Abhinnatvam Nami Namino. Krishna and his name are no different. Hare Krishna. If there's a question, I can take it. Otherwise, we'll end the class here. Vanamali Prabhu has a question. Yes, Prabhu, tell me. Oh, okay. It's from Gita Govinda, and if you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can pick it up. It's in Krishna tastes the sweetness of Mahaprabhu tastes the sweetness of Krishna's lips. I think that's the chapter. You can read that section. Yeah. Another question? Something? No? Okay, thank you. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय, शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि।